Which ridiculously minor event from history would you pay good money to witness? When the first platypus was shipped back to Europe, I recall them thinking it was a hoax and generally being like, what the frick is this? This can't be real. Be great to see their initial reactions, and then when that they realized it was real. Additional fun platypus science fact. It was another 100 years after the platypus hoax before European biologists were convinced that platypuses laid eggs. Australians told them, but it was so preposterous that they assumed platypuses just happened to be found around eggs in the wild. A random fight between two large dinosaurs. That would be cool. I'd pay good money just to see a dinosaur do anything. Just seeing a dinosaur alone would be worth it. Someone should figure out a way to bring them back and keep them in a zoo or a park or something. A gladiator fight at the Colosseum, circa 100 AD, just to see how it looks compared to our modern idea of a gladiatorial match. What food or souvenirs did they sell? How did the crowd act? Apparently the biggest difference between real gladiator fights and those in movies is that in real ones, the fighters rarely died. The person running the games would have to compensate the owner for the dead slave. Also, some of them would have naval battles in the Colosseum, which means there could be a splash zone. Diogenes of Sinope was a classical Greek philosopher who lived in the time of Plato. He ate where he wanted, owned almost nothing, and lived in a jar. It's this particular event in his life I'd like to see, when Plato gave Socrates his definition of man as featherless bipeds and was much praised for the definition. Diogenes plucked a chicken and brought it into Plato's academy, saying, "Behold, I've brought you a man." After this incident, with broad flat nails was added to Plato's definition. It'd have been hilarious to see this. Virginia finding out that West Virginia is separating from the state. I wonder if they would appreciate the irony. You can't just leave the state because you disagree with frick. The moment the pharaoh told Imhotep that he wanted a pyramid built from stone about this big. I'm imagining the scene from Spinal Tap. Only the guy wants a small pyramid, but Imhotep thinks he wants it much bigger. I want to see attorney Abraham Lincoln in one of his professional wrestling matches. Did he call out his challengers? Did he cut a promo on the crowd? Did he have a gimmick? A finishing move? Was he a face or a heel? They say he was undefeated. What was his final record? You're talking to the top hat wearing, beard wearing, slave freeing, woo fourscore speaking, horse carriage riding, Ford Theater dying son of a gun, and I'm having a hard time holding these proclamations down. Harry Truman invited Winston Churchill to play poker at the White House one night after World War II. David Brinkley was one of the other guests. Brinkley said that at one point Churchill got up to take a leak and Truman leaned over to the rest of the players and said, "This man saved the free world. Lose." So, according to Brinkley, the rest of the night we were folding with flushes and three other kinds. I would pay very good money to be at that poker game. And that's how Truman and Churchill conned Brinkley out of $50. One ancient account of the philosopher Chrysippus' death was that he saw a donkey eating his figs, joked about how the donkey might like some wine to wash them down with, then laughed so hard at his own joke that he died from asphyxiation. I hope it's true and would have loved to see that. Watching Hitler playing ping pong and having to chase the ping pong ball. His adorable little Austrian frustration in those tiny lederhosen. Nein, der Ball wird nicht noch bleiben. Norwich, 1851. A man named William Sheward attempted to dispose of his murdered wife's body by chopping it up and dropping the individual parts off at different places in the local area. Apparently he'd go for an evening stroll with a body part concealed under his jacket and would, with as much nonchalance as he could muster, toss it into a hedgerow before heading back home. He repeated this process for a few weeks and hey presto, the body was gone. I'd pay good money to hide in that hedgerow and throw a body part back at him, just to see the look on his face. Somehow, the bastard got away with it too. I'd pay to see an actual showdown between two cowboys. It's high noon. McCree, it's 11 at night, go to bed. Janis Joplin smashing a bottle of Southern Comfort over Jim Morrison's head. Sounds like it was a wild party. If we're doing music history, I would have loved to have seen the Clash at Bonds Nick in 1981. They were at their creative peak and did a whole week of shows with openers like Bad Brains, The Slits, and dead Kennedys. It was apparently like a week-long punk block party. I want to see Prince school Charlie Murphy in basketball. OP said minor event in history. Doc Ellis's LSD no-hitter. Stalin eating a cucumber sandwich. He used to love them when he was in power. Just a ruffled mustachioed Stalin using his iron grip to devour those delicate cucumber triangles. A regular human sacrifice on any ancient Mesoamerican civilization. Aztec, Mayan, Olmec. It sounds gross, but I want to know the preparation of the victim and the ceremony altogether. Jesus being a carpenter, and then Joseph getting annoyed because Jesus measured something wrong. Jesus Christ. Joseph Smith finding the golden plates. I'd like to be there when his wife was yelling at him for fricking his neighbor's wife, and he says, "Hang on, let me talk to God," and he jumps in the closet for 5 minutes, emerging to declare, "No, it's fine. God says it's cool. Just for us boys, though." The premiere of Empire Strikes Back. I want to see how everyone reacted to "No, I Am Your Father." I was there, not the premiere itself, but when it was new in theaters, we literally gasped and said no way. The first time man tried to pet a wild cat, got its hands clawed at, and thought, yep, I love this kitty already. They emerged from the darkness and lo, the Egyptians did say, "What are you called?" To which the cat replied, "Mao," and lo, the Egyptian made it a god. JFK and RFK spit roasting Marilyn Monroe. Those pages of history are stuck together. Andrew Jackson's 1806 duel with Charles Dickinson. The Jackson was shot point blank in the chest, but maintained his cool and shot Dickinson straight through the heart, killing him. Jackson had horrible pain for the rest of his life from the bullet, which was too close to major arteries for operation. The doctor that tended to him afterwards said, "I don't see how you stayed on your feet after that wound," to which Jackson responded, "I would have stood up long enough to kill him if he had put a bullet in my brain." Say what you want about Andrew Jackson. That man was cool. Astronomer Tycho Brahe bet his friend that animals could get drunk just like people. To prove it, he gave his pet moose a lot of vodka. As you would expect, the moose got really drunk. The moose fell down the stairs and died that night. Michelle Pfeiffer wearing the Catwoman suit in Batman Returns. I think you mean putting on the Catwoman suit. High school physics teachers always tells the little anecdote that when Archimedes figured out how to work with density, he left his house naked shouting "Eureka" cause he was in the bathtub. Now, I know there's nothing small about the discovery itself, but I'd love to see the reaction of his neighbors to the random quirky science-y dude strolling naked around town out of nowhere. All the while yelling, "I found it, I found it." The moment Jerry Seinfeld agreed to voice Barry B. Benson in the B movie. I mean, he wrote and produced it, so you'd probably just be watching him jack off to bees before calling Hollywood to tell them about this idea he had. Cleopatra using a bee vibe. The inspiration for the B movie. Jimmy Carter being chased by a swimming rabbit. The discovery of popcorn. I wanna see the first high five. Anytime when Freud, Stalin, Trotsky, Hitler, and Tito were in the same coffee shop in Vienna, they frequented it at the same time. So it's plausible they all were there at the same time at least once. It would be cool as heck to visit an opium den in China when they were truly flourishing. Apparently our modern day interpretation of opium consumption is a best guess. Opium wasn't really considered much of an issue in the Western world until many of the men who had been traveling abroad developed a taste for the ivory clouds and brought it home. When the Westerners fell to the seduction of chewing do, they imported their own elaborate aesthetics and qualities within. Everything from the pipes, the lamps, even the way it was smoked was changed to suit their needs. Some of the information you can find describes these beautiful handcrafted pieces that were touched with both Western and Asian influences, plated with silver and ordained with elaborate designs. The rooms were set to invoke all of your senses and take you to a world that bordered dreams and reality. Like I said though, it didn't become an issue until the West was caught in its grasp. With that, opium was now considered a devil's tool, and mass eradication of it and all knowledge around it was built. All the paraphernalia, any sort of reading material, all of it destroyed. Some pieces survived, but it was exceptionally rare. What as written after the mass destruction is thought to be a kind of faux play, like on the Futurama when they visit the moon and the history is all wrong jumbled up. The same happened in China too. Opium smoking before the communist revolution had apparently diminished significantly, but once communism took hold everything was equally destroyed. The last few opium smokers left to age, to wither and die. I think it would be interesting to see it, just once, what it was really like. We know the plight that it brought upon the Chinese people, but we only know that there was such a deep and profound culture in it, and we know barely anything about it. Paul McCartney writing Picasso's last words on the spot after being challenged by Dustin Hoffman. I love that story, almost as much as I love the album. Band on the Run is one of his best albums in my opinion. Dyatlov Pass incident, of course, with lots of warm clothes and hot cocoa. Turns out they were driven crazy by seeing a man with a mug of hot cocoa appear out of the air and start watching them. President Taft getting stuck in the White House bath. This is incredibly minor and would make me at the very least chuckle. Get to the ranch first to inspect the wreckage of the Roswell incident. Jesus must have farted at some point, right? If we're going with concerts, it's a toss-up. A good Stones show from the 1972 US tour, the Townes Van Zandt show recorded for Live at the Old Quarter, the night James Brown performed the Live at the Apollo concert. I would like to see Mary explain to Joseph how she is pregnant but still a virgin. I bet he was peed as all frick. He was. It's in the book, even. My own family history should meet the requirement of ridiculously minor. I'd like to just hang out with a direct relative from like 6 generations back. Most likely a farmer peasant in Europe, but I'd be fascinated if we had anything in common. Or if there's enough separation that it makes no difference. The Hamilton Burr duel. Could you imagine if they had pay-per-view in early America? This Sunday watch Alexander the Ham Hamilton vs Aaron Ice Cold Burr in the biggest duel of the year. 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. Buy tickets now. Andy Kaufman wrestling Jerry Lawler in Memphis. I bet the crowd was nuts. The defenestration of Prague. What's better than watching people throw each other out of a window? That time the US almost got into another war because there was a dispute about who owned a pig. Yonder Betsy is mine. Pee off, you Appalachian bloke. Your eyesight is as broke as your southern economy. How would you even know what pig is yours? I done fricked your sister, so I got a good know-how on how a pig looks. Filthy muddick. I'm going to get my great-grandfather's musket and teach you a lesson. It'll be the only form of education your kind has seen in generations. A summertime outdoor Grateful Dead concert. Preferably early 70s or late 70s, but really whenever. Just want to see Jerry and experience the atmosphere. This cat is shocked that you haven't liked this video yet. Like it fast so they can calm down. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.